Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fifth session of GEA. This session is about Aristotle's virtue ethics. In the previous session, we learned that ethics in general is subdivided into three subject areas, namely meta-ethics, normative ethics, and applied ethics. And in the previous session, we started focusing on normative ethics, particularly on Plato's virtue ethics. In this session, we shall pay attention on Aristotle's virtue ethics. And so the contents of this presentation are the following. We shall start with Aristotle's life, the Nicomachean ethics, ends and goods, the highest good, various moral virtues, on justice, on the teleology of nature, on eudaimonia. Lastly, we shall deal with deficiency, need, and excess. Now, once we fully understand these subtopics, we are confident that we have understood Aristotle's virtue ethics. Okay, let's first take a look at Aristotle's life. So Aristotle was born in 384 and died in 321. Unlike Socrates and Plato, Aristotle was not an Athenian. He was born in Thrace, which is now northern Greece. His father served as the court doctor or court physician of King Amyntas of Macedon, who is the grandfather of Alexander the Great. And at the age of 17, Aristotle was sent to Athens to study with Plato at his academy. Now, in the previous session, we learned that Plato founded his own school, which is called as the Academy, and that's where Aristotle studied. He stayed there until Plato's death, and Aristotle served as a tutor to Alexander until Alexander became a king. And he eventually returned to Athens and set up his own school called the Lyceum. So just like Plato, who founded his own school, Aristotle, who was a student of Plato, also founded his own school and he named it as Lyceum. Aristotle wrote approximately 200 treatises or 200 works, and out of those 200 works written by Plato, only 31 works survived up to this day. And another very interesting fact about Aristotle is that he was called by Dante Alighieri as the master of those who know. Dante Alighieri is the author of Divine Comedy. Though Plato had a clear influence on Aristotle's thinking, Plato comes to be very different metaphysical conclusions than Plato. For Aristotle, the fundamental reality is what he calls as substance, and he defines substance as those things that actually exist. And substance is a unity of matter and form, or every substance is composed of matter and form. Now, form is defined as the whatness, or that which gives essence to the thing, while matter refers to what the thing is made of. So for example, the table, the form of the table refers to its essence, or refers to what makes the table different from another thing. While its matter is, it could be made of glass, or it could be made of wood, or it could be made of something else. Another example is the chair. The substance of the chair, which is composed of matter and form, the chair is composed of matter, and matter refers to what the thing is made of. It could be made of wood, it could be made of steel or whatsoever. And its form refers to its whatness, what makes the chair different from other furniture. And so the starting point of Aristotle's philosophizing is this concept of substance, which is a unity of matter and form. To further understand substance, Aristotle explained the fourfold causes or the four kinds of causes, in which the first cause is what he calls as the material cause. The material cause refers to what the thing is made of. So for example, the statue, it could be made of metal, or it could be made of marble, or it could be made of something else. So the material cause of something refers to what the thing is made of, while the formal cause refers to the essence of the thing. This is the whatness of the thing. This is what makes this thing different from another thing. The third cause is what Aristotle calls as the efficient cause. Now, that which brings a thing into being. So who caused the statue, or who caused something? Aristotle calls this as efficient cause, or who made it, who made the statue. So it could be the sculpture. The fourth cause is what Aristotle calls as the final cause. Now, the final cause refers to the end, or to the function, or to the goal that which the thing is expected to perform. That for the sake of which the thing is. So the final cause refers to the end or function of a thing. So going back to our example regarding the statue, the end or function of a statue could be a reminder. It could serve as a symbol which will remind people of the heroic deeds that particular person did in the past. The Nicomachean Ethics is Aristotle's theory on ethics. Now, the word Nicomachean is based on it could probably be based on the name of his father, who is Nicomachus, or other historians would credit it to the son of Aristotle, whose name is also Nicomachus, to whom he may have dedicated the work on ethics, which is called Nicomachean Ethics. And the Nicomachean Ethics belongs to what Aristotle calls practical philosophy. It is concerned not with knowledge for its own sake, but with action or doing. Now, one very particular interesting idea about Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics is that he is not concerned about merely knowing the good, but rather Aristotle goes beyond knowing the good, because his main concern is not only knowledge but doing. So it's not enough that we know the good, but rather we should also endeavor, we should strive to do the good. That's why ethics for Aristotle is categorized under practical philosophy, because it's never enough that we know the good. What will make it enough is when we know the good and we do the good. More specifically, it is concerned with the question of what sort of life is the good one for human beings. Nicomachean Ethics is an attempt of Aristotle to explain what makes a good life, or how should an ideal man live his life. Answering this question requires us to understand what human beings are, in particular their final cause. That's why in the previous slide we explained substance, which is the starting point of Aristotle's philosophy, and he defined substance as things that exist, particular things that exist. And a substance is composed of matter and form. And a substance has four causes: the material cause, the efficient cause, the formal cause, and the final cause. And we discussed these causes because Aristotle wants to elaborate his understanding of the good life with his idea of the final cause. Now, the ultimate question here is, what is the end goal of man? What is the function of man? What is the final cause of man? So here are key concepts in Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. First key concept is his concept of eudaimonia. Eudaimonia refers to the daily practice of virtue necessary for a life. Basically, eudaimonia is translated in English as happiness or well-being. So the second key concept in Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics is the so-called arete. Virtue and excellence, including good character, is called arete and is sufficient for happiness. Over and above everything, Aristotle was concerned about the question, what makes us happy? Or what gives us happiness? That's why eudaimonia is a key concept, or happiness or well-being is a key concept in Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. And the answer to the question, what makes us happy or what gives us happiness, is the second concept, which is arete, which is the possession of good character or having virtue. The third key concept is what we call as the telos. Aristotle explains why an ultimate aim or purpose. That's why, again, we started our discussion with the final cause. Because the final cause would be connected to our ultimate aim and our ultimate purpose. What do you think is the ultimate aim and the ultimate purpose of our existence here on earth? And this question would point out to Aristotle's concept known as the telos. And the fourth key concept in Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics is the polis. So the polis refers to the city-state or the society in general. Because Aristotle wants to give a connection or a relation between our political and our personal lives. The city-state or the community is composed of individual persons aggregating in a particular place. And Aristotle believes that there's got to be a certain standard by which we live our lives in the city-state or in the society. And so that's where ethics comes into play with this idea of the polis. So a while ago, we were talking about the final cause. And this would relate to the question, what is our ultimate aim? What is our ultimate purpose? What is our ultimate function? Now, Aristotle explicitly links the notion of an end or function with the notion of good. Now, for purposes of clarity, the term end here does not mean katapusan. It refers to the purpose, it refers to the function, it refers to the aim and the goal. And the goal and the concept or the notion of end is linked with the notion of the good. And the good is defined straightforwardly as that which everything seeks. The good is something that we all aspire to have. The good is the thing that we aspire to be. Clearly, the good is going to differ according to the substance or action under consideration. And the ethics is concerned with the good for human beings. So what is the good that human beings is expected to aim for? What is the good that human beings are expected to perform or function? This connection between ends and goods opens up the possibility of the best good, one which we aim at for itself with no other end beyond it. So the best good has an intrinsic value. The best good is the good which is highest of all, and it has an intrinsic value. You see intrinsic value, it has a value on its own. It has a value in itself, not dependent on anything external or outside it. Now, all other goods are relative to this best good. Now, we come to the point to ask the question, so what is the best good? What is the ultimate aim? What is the ultimate purpose? The answer to the question about what is the highest good or the highest human good, the answer to the question is happiness. Every person aspires or desires or wants to be happy. No person wants to be sad. Everything we do contributes to the attainment of happiness or to the cultivation of our well-being. However, now that we have identified the highest good for humanity, which is happiness, the next question that Aristotle tried to answer was, how do we achieve happiness? How do we make ourselves happy? The answer to the question is linked to the concept of virtue or possessing good character, doing what is good. Not only knowing what is good, but doing what is good. Now, the concept of happiness is linked or connected to the concept of virtue. And virtue is a disposition rather than an activity. That is, a virtuous person is naturally disposed to behave in the right ways and for the right reasons and to feel pleasure in behaving rightly. A virtuous person does good not in order to gain reward, not in order to gain praises, not to gain anything else, but they do good for the sake of doing good. And virtue is a mid-state between extremes and excess of deficiency. We will expound on this later on. Now, happiness is central to Aristotle's concept of the good life. In fact, he said that happiness is the meaning and the purpose of life and the whole aim and end of human existence. And happiness does not consist in pastimes and amusements, but rather in virtuous activities. You may have friends, and friends may give us happiness. We may be happy when we have money. We may be happy when we have When we eat our favorite foods, or when we go to our favorite places, or when we do our favorite hobbies, but there is a different kind of happiness that Aristotle is referring to here. What Aristotle is referring to with the ultimate happiness, or the highest good, which is happiness, is the possession of virtuous or good character, or doing good things, because happiness, as he said, is the meaning and the purpose of life. In order to attain happiness, Aristotle presented the idea of the golden mean. Now, the golden mean is the concept which describes that certain characters or certain behaviors are an excess or are a deficiency of something, while there is an excess and there is also a deficiency. But what is good is to be in the middle, or to hit a balance between excess and deficiency. And he calls that as the mean state. The mean state is the one in the middle. The mean state is not the excess nor deficiency, but rather this is the balance of everything. So again, the ultimate intention of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics is to answer the question, how can we be truly happy? And the answer to this question is, we should possess virtuous characters, or we should possess good character. We should do what is good. His Nicomachean Ethics influenced centuries of political philosophy and gives enduring advice for seekers of happiness. And here's how Aristotle expound his answer to the question, how can we be truly happy? True happiness comes through study, understanding, and contemplation. In other words, wisdom, or the possession of understanding, contemplating on things, and studying things can give us happiness. Another element of happiness is friendship and political community. Just societies encourage strong personal relationships. We have to admit that to certain degrees we need friends, and to certain degrees we have the desire that society has to be just, society has to be fair, society has to sustain our lives. And so happiness is impossible in an unjust society. And another element of happy life is this idea of the golden mean of virtue. In feelings and actions, people should aim for moderate state, not an extreme. So the golden mean is a state of moderation, not too much, not too less, but rather just right, not an extreme, not an excess and not a deficiency, not too much, not too less, but just right. A moderation of everything. And another element of happiness is humans' ethical responsibilities. That humans are accountable for the way they treat others. And here are key arguments in Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics. That humans need reason. The human soul is designed to encourage rational thought and smart decision making. The golden mean requires reason, that we cannot do things in excess or in deficiency, but rather to hit the proper balance, and cities need justice, but reasonable laws, right actions, good leadership help communities flourish. Just like what I said a while ago, that whether we like it or not, our individual lives are affected by the community that we live in. Our individual lives are affected by the kind of leaders that we have. And so we should choose the right leaders because the leaders are the ones who create laws for us. And so if we elect not so good leaders, and so they create not so good laws, and these not so good laws will eventually affect our life and eventually will make us less happy or will make us unhappy. And the last key argument here is happiness. The key to happiness is in moderation. The key to happiness is in restraint. The key to happiness is in control of everything. Virtuous people will enjoy themselves in the right way, at the right time, and at the right amount. So here are various moral virtues that Aristotle advocated. First is the virtue of courage. It consists of confidence in the face of fear. And then temperance consists of not giving in too easily to the pleasures of physical sensation. Temperance is our ability to control our wants and our desires. We may feel hungry, but we know that eating just anything is not healthy for the body. And then liberality and magnificence consist of giving away varying amounts of money in appropriate and tasteful ways. And magnanimity and proper ambition and then patience. So these are the common moral virtues that Aristotle advocated. In our previous session, I emphasized that normative ethics is more practical than meta-ethics in a sense that normative ethics suggests some virtues. Now this is a demonstration, this is a manifestation in which normative ethics is indeed more practical because it outlines virtues that we need to possess and we need to practice. Another central idea in the Nicomachean ethics, or in Aristotle's philosophy in general, is his idea of justice. And for him, justice is the mother of all virtues. It encompasses all other virtues. If you have justice as a virtue, it follows that you have everything. Since being just consists of exhibiting virtue generally. In human affairs, there are two primary forms of justice, namely distributive justice and rectificatory justice. Now, what is distributive justice? Distributive justice deals with the distribution of wealth or honors among a group of people and should be given according to merit. Now, distributive justice deals with the questions who gets what and how much do persons get. Do persons in the society get an equal share of the government's resources? Do people who deserve financial assistance from the government in this time of pandemic receive assistance from the government? Do all poor people receive the so-called social amelioration program or the cash subsidy from the government? Or some poor people don't receive or haven't received the financial aid from the government? Or do some rich people receive financial aid from the government? Rich people obviously don't need financial assistance from the government, but some news would tell us that there are some people who took advantage of the social amelioration program. Now, questions like this will point out to Aristotle's concept of distributive justice. Are the government resources distributed fairly and equitably to all people? So questions like this would refer to the concept of distributive justice. And distributive justice is a critical element that will contribute to people's happiness in the society. Just imagine poor people not receiving any financial help or any help for that matter from the government, while some rich people are enjoying and are taking advantage of the government's resources. The second form of justice is rectificatory justice. This word rectificatory is derived from the root word rectify, which means to correct something wrong. Now, rectificatory justice deals with exchanges between two or more people and should always aim at restoring a sense of balance and equality between people concerned. For example, your neighbor or a friend of yours borrowed money from you and he promised to pay that money on the time that you both agreed. But several days later, you just learned that that friend of yours or that neighbor of yours who borrowed money from you went away and he showed no intention of paying the money he borrowed from you. In other words, he no longer has any intention of repaying you from the money that he borrowed from you. And so to a certain extent, you as a person who lent that money to that person needs rectificatory justice. That person who borrowed money from you and who did not show interest to repay you has to be rectified, because not paying the money that someone borrowed from you is a wrong act, and so it has to be rectified. Or when a person rapes a woman, that act needs to be rectified. And so victims of inhumanity, victims of certain crimes are crying out for rectificatory justice. That whenever some people will do us wrong, we will cry for rectificatory justice. We would cry out for justice, since those people who are doing wrong to us or who did wrong to us have to be, to a certain extent, they have to be punished. They have to be corrected. They have to be rectified, in short. So this is what I was explaining a while ago. Distributive justice refers to the division or distribution of goods and burdens among members of society. We have to ensure that the less in the society get more from the government, while rectificatory justice, which is also called as corrective justice, refers to the determination and methods of punishment. Now, if we go into details with regard to corrective justice, there are a lot of relevant questions here. Should death penalty be legalized? Will justice be served if we kill a person who committed heinous crime? Or what do you think is the right punishment for every crime? Definitely, we cannot have the same punishment to different crimes. And so the question would be, what punishment is sufficient to a particular crime. And that's the concern of corrective or rectificatory justice. And, and so the idea that punishment should fit crime. And so we proceed to the next subtopic, the teleology of nature. The word teleology is derived from the word telos, which means the end goal, the aim, the function, the purpose. And so we were asking a while ago, what is the telos? What is the ultimate goal, the ultimate aim of man? Aristotle classifies humans as irrational animals, as rational animals, meaning that our telos is rational. In other words, our function in life is to realize our full potential as rational animals. Since we are rational animals, or since we are animals endowed with rationality, then we have to make use of that rationality. We have to act rationally. We have to think rationally. It is only by acting and thinking rationally that we meet or we perform our telos or our end goal, which is to become rational. If we are not fully rational, we are falling short of our true nature. And the purpose of a moral education then is to teach us how we may become perfectly rational and immune to the temptations of our lower animalistic parts. Now, what are our animalistic tendencies? What are our animalistic behaviors? Now, our animalistic behaviors are the behaviors which we have in common with animals. For example, eating is an animalistic behavior because human beings eat like lower creatures or animals eat. A human being eats and a dog also eats. However, though eating is an animalistic behavior, we can exercise rationality in there. In what way? When a dog gets hungry and you feed that dog, the tendency is that dog will simply eat what you offer to him. However, if a man goes hungry and a stranger offers food to that man, we normally think whether the food is safe or not. And that alone is a demonstration, that alone is a proof that though eating is an animalistic behavior, but we can control, we can choose what we eat and what we should not eat. Right? So, another example of animalistic behavior is having sex. Animals have sex with their mates, just like human beings. But you see dogs. We see dogs having sex on the street. But human beings don't act like that because we know that reason will tell us that having sex on the street in broad daylight will affect our reputation. It will affect our dignity. It will destroy our social image. And so Aristotle is saying that human beings are animals. Yes, we are animals, no question about that. But we are animals endowed with rationality. And so we have to make use of that rationality to control and to do things in moderation. Right? I hope you are understanding. I hope you are learning from our discussion. Okay. The next thing that we will emphasize is on the concept on eudaimonia. A while ago, we were saying that eudaimonia, this is a Greek term, and this is usually translated as happiness or well-being. Now, eudaimonia or happiness or well-being is the highest human good. This is what everyone wants. This is what everyone wants. We all want to be happy. Everything we do actually contributes to our happiness. You go to school, you enroll in college, you aspire to earn a degree because later on you want to have a job, you want to have a salary, you want to support yourself, you want to support your family because supporting yourself and supporting your family will give you a kind of satisfaction, a kind of happiness. And so everything we do contributes to the fulfillment of the so-called eudaimonia or the cultivation of our well-being. Manong manguyab man ta? Manguyab ta because we feel that having a partner will give us happiness. That's why on the contrary, pag bulag ang pag-uyab, masubok ta, we feel sad. And so we look for another partner. Because having a partner will give us a certain kind of happiness. And happiness, at the end of the day, is what we all need. This is what we all dream. This is what we all want. A person who is eudaimon is not simply enjoying life, but is enjoying life by living successfully. And while happiness is probably the best English word to translate eudaimonia, the term also carries connotations of success, fulfillment, and flourishing. And a person who inhabits a proper place in the social structure and who appropriately fulfills the duties and expectations of that place is happy. Because for the Greeks, happiness is a matter of living, not just feeling the right way. So happiness is not only an emotional state. This is not only an emotion. This is not only a feeling, but rather happiness also means living along with other people in the society. Happiness means success. Happiness means achieving what you want in life. And that happiness should be closely connected to success and fulfillment reflects an important aspect of social life in ancient Greece. That it will be too selfish on our part if we only think of our own happiness. It will be selfish on our part if in the process of making ourselves happy, we are making other people unhappy. And so we have to think as well that we are social animals. We live along with others in the society. And so we have to ensure that while we make ourselves happy, we have to be mindful of the well-being of other people. Okay, for our assessment, number 6, I'd like you to answer the following questions. Based on Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, what is the highest human good and how best can we achieve it? The second question is, according to Aristotle, nature works towards a telos or end goal. Our goal in life is to achieve our true nature, and this true nature consists essentially of rationality. The purpose of immoral education then is to teach us how we may become perfectly rational and immune to the temptations of our lower animalistic parts. The question is, how do you think can we become perfectly rational and immune to the temptations of our lower animalistic parts? Submit your output on assessment number 6 to my personal messenger account. Okay? Again, please take note. Please refrain from having lengthy yet irrelevant answers. Please go straight to the point. And be sure to change your messenger account name to your real name so that it will be easier for me to trace your submissions. Now, the last topic today, as far as Aristotle's virtue ethics is concerned, is his idea of the golden mean. The golden mean, based on what we have discussed initially, refers to the idea wherein we need to hit in perfect balance. We need to have a moderation of everything. And so Aristotle discussed deficiency, mean, and excess. Now this table shows the virtues and vices. In the first column, you see the sphere of action or feeling. In the second column, you see the excess. And the third, the mean, the fourth is the deficiency. Now, excess and deficiency are extremes. And again, excess and deficiency are extremes. And Aristotle wants us to avoid the extremes. Because the extremes, referring to excess and deficiency, they are vices. They are not good thing to do. While the mean, which is the thing in moderation, is the virtue. Now, to understand this further, let's try to dissect this table. Let's focus on fear and confidence. If you have too much confidence, if your confidence is in excess, it will result to rashness, lack of deliberation or caution. Kung unsa nga sa una-una, buhaton dayon, way una-una, kung unsay resulta or unsay consequence, that's rashness. And that is a vice because rashness is an excess. The opposite of rashness is cowardice. Naibunahang buhaton pero kalawan. We lack courage or firmness or purpose. So rashness is the result of excess of confidence, while cowardice is the result of deficiency of confidence. Walay confidence, it will result to cowardice. But we should know that both rashness and cowardice are in excess. No? Or rashness is in excess and cowardice is in deficiency. In short, both are extremes. Both are extremes and they are not ideal behavior or character. The mean between rashness and cowardice is what we call as courage, the mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. Okay. Ganahan ka nga manguyab. Okay. Pag wala kayong confidence, kung sobra kayong confidence, so kung sobra kayong confidence, hindi ka maulaw. So bisag kinsa imong ganahang panguyaban, imong panguyaban. So that's the result of rashness. Pero kung ganahan ka nga manguyab pero Wa kay confidence, talawat ka, na kay naibgan, pero talawat man ka, so nahitabo, wa ka nakapanguyab. So cowardice ang tawag na. So, di taganahan ng rashness or cowardice. What we want, as far as Aristotle's virtue ethics is concerned, is courage. We have the strength, we have the confidence, the right confidence to do what we want to do. Okay, another example is on pleasure and pain. Okay. An excess here is what we call as licentiousness. Lacking legal or moral restraints. Kung we disregard or for strict rules of correctness. So, nabuol siya, nagugulagan. So, nagplano na mag-take of drugs. But we know that taking illegal drugs is obviously not allowed in this country. Palit ng drugs, gamit, sakpan. So, muna siya na we have to have legal and moral restraints of what we do. Di pwedeng kung unsay gana natong buhaton. For example, you feel the urge to have sex. And so when the urge to have sex goes uncontrolled, and so, mahitabo mamang-rape ang usa ka tao sa laing tao. So, they become licentious. Na pwede na lang. Pwede mag-rape, pwede mag-drugs. But we know that being licentious is an excess. That is a vice. That's not moral. The opposite of licentiousness is insensibility. The deficiency is the insensibility. Incapable of feeling or sensation, lacking emotional response. And the one in the middle, the one in moderation is temperance. Moderation in action, thought, or feeling. Moderation in the indulgence of the appetites. We can control our actions, our thoughts, and our feelings. That's temperance. Another is self-expression. How do you describe or how do you express yourself to others? Pag sobra ang self-expression, it will result to boastfulness, excessive pride in oneself. Proud kay ka sa imong kaugalingon. Ikaw ra pud ang gadayon sa imong kaugalingon. And we call that as boastfulness. That's excess. Pero pag makulangan sad ka ang self-expression, it will result to understatement. You will degrade yourself. You will look down at yourself. A statement that represents something or someone is less important than it really is. Okay. Ang boastful na tao, isang dili siya bright, ngayon siya na bright ay siya. Isang dili siya angayan, ngayon siya na angayan ay siya. Ang example sa understatement is, bisag bright siya, pero hindi siya na, ay bobo dyan ko. Bisag, angayan siya, hindi siya nga, hindi ko angayan. So that's understatement. And both are not good. What is good is the one in the middle. Truthfulness. When you are disposed to tell the truth. Isulti lang yun sa ubang tao sa imong kaugalingon kung unsa naging ka. No more, no less. That's truthfulness. Okay. So this is just the same. Another is social conduct. Social conduct. Excess of social conduct results to obsequiousness. Seeking approval or favor by means of flattery. Mudayig sa ubang tao na sobra-sobra, ma-over-over para na makagain ng friends. Pag kulang sa social conduct, it will result to cantankerousness. or difficult or irritating to deal with. Mga tao na irritable, lisod kayo i-deal. Ang tunga-tungaan na is friendliness, showing kindly interest and goodwill. Not too much and not too less. So that's Aristotle's concept of the golden mean, the deficiency, mean, and excess. Now, I think this is now the last topic. 3 criteria to distinguish virtuous people from people who behave in the right way by accident. Now, how do we determine people who are really good? How do we distinguish people who are good and people who are pretending to be good and people who are good only by chance or by accident? First, virtuous people know that they are behaving in the right way. They are aware that they are doing the right thing. Second is, virtuous people choose to behave in the right way for the sake of being virtuous. They behave rightly not because they want to gain praises, not because they want to gain recognition, not because they want to gain affirmation or approval or recognition or reward, but they do good for the sake of doing good. And the last is virtuous people that their behavior manifests itself as part of a fixed virtuous disposition. Being good doesn't mean that you are only good in certain times. Being virtuous or being good means being good consistently. Dili pwede nga maayo ka sa usa ka tawo nga maayo ra sa imo. Dili pwede nga mangamigo ra ka o maayo ra ka sa tawo nga naay kwarta. Dili pwede nga buutan ra ka sa tawo nga buutan nimo. But we have to be good. We have to be good to everyone, regardless whether they treat us well or not. We have, because being virtuous, that is a fixed disposition. Regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the situation, we choose to be good. And so being virtuous or being good means consistency in our action. That we have to be good not only to our friends, or we have to be good not only to people who we consider as friends, but we have to be good even to our enemies. I think that's one of the greatest challenge in the Bible, that we have to love our enemies, because we should not choose people whom we love, because we have to be good, we have to be loving to everyone, regardless of who they are, regardless of how they treat us. The 3 practical rules of conduct: avoid the extreme that is farther from the mean. And this is the overall message of Aristotle's The Golden Mean, to avoid the extreme. Second, notice what errors we are particularly susceptible to and avoid them diligently. If you easily give in to the temptations of the senses, then you have to be aware of those weaknesses of yours and avoid to avoid from giving in to those temptations. And be wary of pleasure, as it often impedes our judgment. Take note that we are rational animals, and we should not let anything cloud our ability to think and our ability to analyze. So we should let reason prevail over emotion or pleasure. For your assessment, this is now assessment number 7. I'd like you to answer one simple question. Is it best weigh always between two extremes? In other words, is it always best to act in moderation? Is it always best to follow the main characters? Is it always best to avoid excess and deficiency? Is it always best to avoid the extremes? Is it always best to act in moderation? Justify your answer why or why not. And submit your answer to the group chat, not to my personal messenger account. Again, submit your output in assessment number 7 to the group chat. And I'd like you to comment, react, agree and disagree to the answers of your classmates. That's the reason why I let you submit your outputs in the group chat, because I want to generate reactions and comments. But you have to be friendly. You have to be careful in how you react and comment and disagree to your classmates' answers. That ends session 5 on Aristotle's virtue ethics. See you in our next session. Keep safe, everyone.